Okay,
whenever you're ready.
Okay, we'll open the Wednesday, June 28th, 2023 Troy Planning Commission meeting. We have roll call, please.
Mr. McGarry?
Present.
Mr. Westmeyer?
Here.
Mayor? Here. Mr. Titterington?
Here.
Mrs. Ehrlich? Here. Mr. Wolke? Mr. Emmerich? We have a quorum.
Okay. The minutes were sent out for everyone. Is there any comments, revisions, or corrections to the minutes from the last meeting?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second. Motion to approve. Second. Roll.
Mrs. Early.
Is everybody all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, they're approved. Okay, first item of business is a historical district application for certificate of appropriateness for installation of a window sign at 305 Public Square, second floor. Report?
Yes, sir. So this is a request by the applicant, Ms. McHenry, on behalf of the owner, Steve Smith, for the Planning Commission to consider a window sign installation at the property located at 305 Public Square. The applicant is proposing to install a 4.2 square feet, 32 inches by 19 inches window sign on the window along the Public Square side entrance. The building is permitted to have a total of 25 square feet. The design manual does state that graphics and messages should be simple and clear, avoiding phone numbers and web addresses. Staff recommends denial of the proposed sign based on that the proposed sign does not meet the design manual section 5.0C. And that'll conclude my report.
Do you want to elaborate a little bit on that to what does not meet the requirements of the zoning requirements?
Yeah, so our new design manual that was adopted by the Planning Commission in February, when we reviewed the Chapter 5 signs, we looked at providing simple and clear messaging throughout the downtown. And as a part of that, web addresses and phone numbers were discouraged per that design manual.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
So, and that's consistent with what we've done in the past. I know prior to clarifying all of that, we do have some that are out there that somebody didn't catch or predated, their grandfather did, if you will. So we would not have any problems under the design guidelines if with this sign, and I'm looking at the rendering or the picture, if it's stopped, well, not stopped, but so trust in us for life, then the next two lines removed, and then the key and everything else is okay.
The key is a part of the existing Outlook Financial Center. So the key isn't a part of this.
It's kind of back.
Yeah.
Okay.
This will actually be right above that.
Okay, so the web address there and the phone number, if that's removed, this sign is okay?
That's correct.
And did you talk to the applicant about the issue? And
I did. The applicant's in the audience, but they wanted to proceed forward with a negative staff recommendation.
okay.
One other question. I can't recall when we discussed this, if they make the, by the door or the handle have a non-readable sign or a small business sign that just, gives a phone number and a website where it's not visible from the street, is that permitted?
The sign code allows incidental signs. Typically, those are like hours of operation. The sign code is pretty specific in defining incidental signs. I don't have the square footage for the particular web address and phone number here, but typically that's geared towards open hours, things of that nature.
Right.
So was there discussion then about the QR code being included in this signage?
The applicant just wanted to proceed forward as they submitted it.
Okay, but are they aware of our QR code? Ability to add that?
We didn't go into the specifics of the QR code. They were really stuck on the web address and phone numbers and wanting to proceed with that submittal.
Okay, thanks.
This is the only action we've got before us is either total denial or we can approve it with conditions, correct?
Correct.
Is there a desire by commission members?
Yeah, I would make the motion, if the conditions are one of the options, and since we typically, I think we're advised to make motions in the affirmative, I would make a motion to approve condition upon removing the web address and the phone number.
I would second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. You're representing the owner?
Where's the sign come from?
I'm the applicant.
Okay, well, you go ahead and speak. You just have to give us your name and address.
Okay. My name is Marcella McHenry. I'm here on behalf of Pickrell, Schaefer, and Ebling. My personal address is 310 West Jefferson Street, New Carlisle, Ohio. So we are a full-service law firm. We've had another building in Troy. Back in January, we signed a lease to rent an office space on Southeast Public Square, located on the second floor of 40th North Main Street. And we respectfully request that the minutes reflect the following. We are here to request that our application for our sign permit be approved. As you can see from the handouts, the sign will be on the window located above the other sign on the graphic that I handed out to you, so it's going to be right above the Outlook sign. We were informed that our sign permit application was rejected because of the one provision in the newly implemented design manual. The design manual went into effect on February 8th, and according to the preamble, you as the City Commission have discretion to review each project on a case-by-case basis. So we are committed to the city's vision to keep the historic look of Troy, and so I want to offer a few arguments to ask that our sign be approved as it is. First, our proposed sign follows all of the recommendations in the design manual except for the web and with the web page and the phone number. The sign is simple in design and fits in with the style of the building. It's clear and made of durable material such as vinyl. And the message and logo is simple and aimed for pedestrians who are passing by the window, because one of the sign design manuals is that it be pedestrian oriented. So a pedestrian can walk up and see the sign and see the phone number and the web page and be directed. Second, it keeps with the character of the other signs in the window. As you can see on that picture, all the other signs have web pages and phone numbers. They were grandfathered in, but the manual only recommends that the signs now should not have phone numbers and addresses. There's no clear prohibition, and in fact, it's more pedestrian-oriented based on the location of the sign to walk and see a phone number and a web page rather than having to reach out for a QR code. So that's why we were not we didn't enjoy the QR option as much. And third, our argument is that this regulation may alienate many of our clientele. A lot of our personal clients don't use QR codes as much, so they're more familiar with web pages and phone numbers. Essentially, this regulates content and appears a little bit unreasonable just because of how the other signs are on the window. There's web pages as well, as you can see. And then finally, we have one more matter to address. We entered the lease in January, as you can see from the front page of the lease that I handed out. And the design manual was implemented, I'm sorry, if I said February, we entered the lease in January, and the design manual was implemented in February, so we are grandfathered in, and this won't affect any precedent. So finally, to summarize my request, I would like for the record to show in the minutes that our sign permit should be approved on the 4 points I have discussed. First, the sign follows all but one of the recommendations in the newly implemented site design manual, and it keeps with the character of the other signs right next to it. Second, the sign keeps with the whole harmonious structure of how the code is to be implemented. And third, having a requirement that allows QR codes but not phone numbers and addresses, web page addresses, basically regulates the content of the sign, which is a little bit problematic. And then finally, our use of the sign is grandfathered in because we entered the lease in January and the site design manual was implemented in February. Thank you all for your time and consideration.
Thank you for your comments. When was the application made?
The application was made in May for the sign
Okay.
and the occupancy.
Yeah, so we
did not have an occupancy in January.
okay. In the effect of this, the motion on the table is to approve based on the conditions that does not include those phone number or the website. If it's approved in that manner, then what's the choice of the owner to rectify it? Simply just remove it, or can they come back and appeal it?
Well, they haven't installed it yet, right?
It hasn't been installed, yeah, so
Well, I say remove.
yeah, they could remove those items. If the recommendation on the table proceeds forward, they could remove those items and it would be approved. They'd also have the right to an appeal to the BZA.
Okay, so there's an appeal process. Now, the QR codes, refresh my memory on that. QR codes are allowed, but they're a certain size. It's restricted to?
6 inches by 6 inches, yes.
Okay, so it's an alternative of the QR code.
That's correct.
Okay, in this case, if they would want to go with the QR code to maintain the e-contact, then they would have to resubmit?
They would resubmit. It would be considered a minor amendment, so it'd be administratively approved. Window signs are typically a minor amendment, but because this doesn't comply with the design manual, staff forwarded it to the planning commission for review.
Okay. Thank you.
Is there,
Can I comment on the QR code thing real quick, just because that came up? So I'm Trevor Levy with Vantage Signs. We designed the layout for them. One thing to consider on that QR code, being as it can only be 6 by 6, if you look at the picture, I think she provided a handout that showed where the logo will go in the window. It'll be at the top of the window. It would be pretty tough for somebody to actually scan the QR code in that position, because it would be looking up, number one, and it's going to be on the glass, which is reflective. Just something to think about is the QR code. Some people would probably have issues actually scanning it in that position on glass. So it's not necessarily a trade-off for a phone number or a website address all the time, I guess. So just something to consider there.
Mr.
Appreciate
Chair?
your comment.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Just to reiterate, my conditions did not include the QR code. We're not pushing the QR code. That's just a more subtle option, and sometimes it, depending on the use or the type of use, it's a little easier to get the most recent information out there if somebody can hit the QR code. It doesn't work in every situation. I didn't, press the issue on the QR code. It's not like we're trying to get everybody to go to QR code. It was just something that we had discussed and that we had put some design guidelines around.
No, I appreciate your clarification. I raised the issue only on the basis of e-commerce. It gives people an option. Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor. Could we have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Westmeyer?
Yes.
Mayor? Yes. Mr. Titterington?
Yes.
Mrs. Early?
Yes.
Mr. McGarry?
Yes.
Motion is approved.
Okay, next item of business. Historical District application, certificate of appropriateness for 210 West Main, 210 West Main Street, repair and replacement of the roof. We have a report.
Yes, sir. So the applicant on behalf of the owner, DL Legacy LLC, is requesting the planning commission to review the roof repair and replacement at 210 West Main Street. The applicant is proposing a complete tear-off of the current roof, inspection and repair of damaged decking, and replacement of the roof material with the 50 mil Duro Top roofing system. It's essentially rubber roofing. The stone coping will also be covered with flashing in the color of signature desert sand. The contributing features of the shallow cornice as referenced in the OHI form will not be altered during the repairs. The side coping that will be used will be minimally visible from the right-of-way and is consistent throughout the Historic Preservation Overlay District. Section 2.1 of the design manual states, preservation of original architectural features and material are the first preference in rehabilitation. Staff recommends approval based on the following. Repairs are using similar materials as the existing roof, and the architectural features referenced on the OHI form will be maintained. That'll conclude my report.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
So, Austin, in Rusty's report, it says the stone coping will also be covered with flashing in the color of ash gray, stone white, or sandstone. Are you now saying they landed on desert sand and
Yeah, so we met on site to review the color alterations, and made a determination that the desert sand is the most accurate in terms of the existing stone.
Well, I know that we had one other case recently where there were 2 or 3 different color options. I just wanted to make sure, so.
We clarified that it is going to be the desert sand, and that was based on staff's recommendation to them.
And they were okay with that?
They were okay with that.
And so what is this palette for? Is this for those
That
three?
was the flashing options, so
Okay.
this is a more accurate document.
Okay.
So your recommendation is including the approval, requesting approval based on the desert sand.
That's correct, yep.
I'll make a motion to approve
I'll second.
Desert sand.
with the desert sand. Thank you.
Okay, motion's made to approve using the desert sand coping color. Roll call vote, please.
Mayor? Yes. Mr. Titterington?
Yes.
Mrs. Early?
Yes.
Mr. McGarry?
Yes.
Mr. Westmeyer?
Yes.
Motion is approved.
Okay, next final item is a proposed amendments to the zoning code related to the self-storage facilities and the solar energy systems. It's up to us to determine whether or not to hold a public hearing and also make a recommendation to city council. Does council have to have a public hearing for this also?
Council required.
Okay, the report.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
I would recommend that we not hold a public hearing since the council has to
For both
for both.
items.
I'll second.
Actually, a third item, but we'll get to that in a minute because I'm a little
We've got the
confused.
motion to not hold a public hearing for both issues and the revisions to the zoning code. Roll call vote?
I was gonna say I seconded that.
Oh,
Yes,
Right.
you did second it.
Yes.
I had that down.
Thank you.
Okay, yes. All right, Mr. Titterington?
Yes.
Mrs. Ehrlich?
Yes.
Mr. McGarry?
yes.
Mr. Westmeyer?
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes.
Motion is passed. Commission will not hold a public hearing.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chair, just one question before we dive into the details of these. My understanding was there were going to be 3 items on here, one of which is including an update to the M2 principal permitted uses
Yes,
to include manufactured training facilities as an allowed use.
yes.
What happened to that?
It is in this,
It's in there.
it is in this change.
It's just not on our
It's
agenda.
not on the agenda?
Right. It's not on the agenda.
It's just not on the agenda. It was outlined in the memo, though.
Okay, all right.
Would you like me to go through those changes and kind of outline it a little bit?
Yes, I
Okay.
appreciate it.
So really, we're proposing 7 alterations, kind of broken down into multiple categories. A little bit of background on the self-storage issue or item. Council adopted a moratorium on self-storage facilities as ordinance 2-2023 to allow staff to perform analysis on the impact of self-storage facilities in relation to our industrial districts. Those recommended changes and a little bit of analysis is the last alteration, number 7 in this report. And then at the May 24th Planning Commission meeting, the Planning Commission identified a need for standards for solar panels, so those are also being included here. The first main alteration to the code is definitions. We added the definition for manufacturing training facilities. Second definition we added was self-storage facilities, and the third definition is for solar energy systems. All 3 of those uses were really just clarifying. The zoning code currently lumps together warehouse and wholesale and other storage facilities together. All we're doing with this is separating them and clearly defining them. Alteration number 2 included a change to the B1 local retail district. We inserted pet grooming as a permitted use in the B1 district. The reason for that, the code permitted beauty parlors but did not permit pet grooming. So we clarified that and added that to the B1 district. Alteration number 3 included a change to the B4 highway service business district. We removed warehouses and other storage facilities from the list of permitted uses. Alteration number 4 was the change to the M2 light industrial district, where we inserted manufacturing training facilities, self-storage facilities, and wholesale but not retail warehouses. So that will be those changes for the M2, and those comply with, that's the reason for the definitions in that first alteration. Alteration number 5 added an exemption for self-storage facilities for the number of principal buildings per lot. The reasoning for that was because we were getting a lot of planned development requests for self-storage facilities, and that's really not the intent for the planned development. We added standards later on you'll see later on in this report for that. So that's why we added the exemption. So now instead of doing planned development every time, we have use-specific standards that are required to be met. Alteration number 6 was a change to the accessory structures section of our code. This is clarifying the distance separation between an accessory structure and the principal structure. The Ohio Building Code and Fire Code has changed since these standards were adopted. So the code currently reads 10 feet setback, while the Fire Code is now 3 feet in some instances and it's 5 feet in others. So we made that a blanket 5 feet to ensure consistency with the other codes. Alteration number 7 was the addition to the wind energy conversion systems and other alternative energy systems. So these are the standards that we added for both ground-mounted and roof-mounted systems. Ground-mounted, we added a height requirement. Currently, it was 20 plus feet is the maximum height permitted, as long as it wasn't taller than the principal structure. We made that 8 feet. The 20-foot height is very concerning in terms of visibility from neighboring properties. We also added an area requirement, so you cannot essentially place solar panels all in your backyard. It's a percentage, 25% of the rear yard, and that's a calculation that staff would do. And then adding a provision that they have to be accessory to a permitted principal use, so you can't place them on a vacant lot. For roof mounted, we really focused on adding provisions for if they're facing the public right of way, making sure that they're flush mounted and architecturally pleasant, and also the conduits and other electric that runs to it are properly hidden. That's really the main focus that staff reviewed here. And then alteration number 8 was the self-storage provisions. Essentially, we added some architectural requirements just on the front facades that face the public right-of-way, and we added a distance that can't be located within 1,000 feet of another one. If you look at our M2 light industrial district, we only have about 16% of the total acreage is currently undeveloped, and if you look at where those pockets are, they're all really close together, Kings Chapel Drive North and Maryville, so this would protect the development, the future development of those areas. So staff recommends that the Planning Commission provide a positive recommendation to City Council for the proposed zoning code changes as discussed in this report. And that'll conclude my report.
That does clarify things for me, thank you.
Here, get the warehouse is at the
The
beginning.
only question that came up,
Warehouse is
and I
at the
think
beginning.
this might have been part of the discussion with, with the solar panel. Do we have adequate property maintenance ordinances for solar panels that are become non-operable and are just left there to rot? Yeah.
Another provision, in the same section that we're altering, later on in the code, it talks about abandonment, and if abandoned within 6 months, they're required to remove that.
Okay, that's exactly where I was going. Okay. Any other questions for staff? Comments?
No.
You did a good job.
Thank you.
I have a comment. I'm a little concerned with the architecturally pleasant. Doesn't really define anything.
Architecturally pleasant.
What does that mean?
In terms of solar panels?
Yeah.
You don't put, essentially layman's terms, you don't put like purple solar panels up on a black roof and things of that nature. It's really what we're looking for there.
Well, I know at one point we talked about them having to match the roof.
Right.
Why would you say that?
That's where we added that architectural element, meaning that it need to be compatible architecturally with the roof. So our interpretation will be
So
covered.
it's just descriptor words that's what that means.
We have a burgundy roof. I've never seen burgundy solar panels, so I would not be able to put burgundy solar panels on
No,
my
but
roof.
you'd be able to put something darker on there so that it would
And
complement it
Yeah,
and get as close as it possibly could.
Rather than being
I mean, yours is
specific about a
burgundy, but it's
color.
probably got some black or dark gray charcoal in it.
That's where you're just shifting, it's giving the a little bit of flexibility there, because
Yeah, it's
you're not gonna get
hard
it
to-
exact.
There is some discretion from a staff standpoint.
I like this solution.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, before us, it's a recommendation. We have to make a recommendation to council for approval or going back.
I'll make a recommendation to take it to city council.
Okay, we have a motion to recommend approval to council.
Yes.
I will second that.
We have a second. Roll call vote.
Mrs. Ehrlich?
Yes.
Mr. McGarry?
Yes.
Mr. Westmeyer?
Yes.
Mayor Oda?
Yes.
Mr. Titterington?
Yes.
Motion is approved.
Okay, is there any other business for us?
No, sir, we don't have.
Okay, hearing none, I entertain a motion for adjournment.
I'll make that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, we are adjourned.
Okay.